For today's presentation, I have justifiable versus unjustifiable protest. So for the first slide, I have explanation of criteria. According to philosophers like Martin Luther King Jr. and John Rawls, civil disobedience is a public, nonviolent act of consequence that aims to effect change while acknowledging the potential for legal consequences. A legitimate civil demonstration has to 1. Have a strong moral justification, 2. Be nonviolent, 3. Be a last resort, and 4. Show willingness to accept a consequence. So for the first one, we have, this is justifiable protest. This was the 2022 Dobbs decision protest. Following the Supreme Court's ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization in June 2022, thousands of Americans demonstrated against the lifting of Roe versus Wade. So this does have moral justification. The supporters contended that it was a battle for gender equality and bodily autonomy in line with justice ideals. Then we have nonviolent. There was marches, sit-ins, and demonstrations. The demonstrations were the most common forms of protest. We have a last resort. Since all legal options for defending abortion's rights had been exhausted, the main form of expression was public protest. And then finally, we have acceptance of consequences. In keeping up with MLK's civil disobedience philosophy, several protesters voluntarily accepted arrest for holding their demonstrations in prohibited areas. All right, so analysis on Dobbs decision protest. The protest aligns with justifiable civil disobedience based on principles from Martin Luther King Jr.'s and John Rawls. So it had moral justification. The advocates argue for bodily autonomy and reproductive rights as fundamental human rights, nonviolence. This shows peaceful demonstrations a key criteria for justifiable protest. Then public engagement. The signs and visibility of protest suggest an effort to raise awareness and influence policy. So now we have unjustifiable protest. We're doing the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. The attack on the U.S. Capitol of January 6 was a protest against the results of the 2020 presidential election being confirmed. However, this incident does not meet important philosophical standards for acceptance for civil disobedience. My bad. So this has lack of moral justification. The courts and electoral officials reject the protest idea, which was based on false allegations of election fraud. Then there was violence. Rioters violated the ideals of nonviolent protest by attacking law officers, breaking into the Capitol, and threatening officials. There was not a last resort. Attempts to dispute election results through legal means such as court cases and recounts have previously been made. And there was a refusal to accept consequences. A large number of participants dodged accountability, with some claiming they were not at fault or requesting